and welcome to another episode of the B2B Leadership Podcast. My name is Nils Vinya, and today my guest is DJ. DJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me. Nice to meet you today.
Wonderful to have you on. Thank you so much for being here and joining us, DJ. Before we get started, would you share with me and this audience the role that you're in today and the company that you're working for?
Yes. Today I'm the director of product marketing at a company called Oyster. We're a company that allows HR companies, software companies to hire people globally. So you can hire anyone, no matter where they live, for your growing business. We hire, manage, and take care of your global workforce.
Hire, manage, and take care of your global workforce. That's pretty enticing given the state of the world and, kind of the demand to find talent across the board anywhere. When you say global, are your clients actually leveraging global employees, or are you just working globally for your clients?
So they do, they hire globally. So our customers are mainly US or European customers. We are trying to more or less level the playing field and to provide equal access to opportunities for talent in emerging economies.
Wow.
And so these companies will come to us. They've already usually would have got someone they want to hire, and they would want to use our platform so that they can do it in a compliant way. They don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars and pounds setting up their own entities, so they go to us to manage that entire process for them.
So they can hire, so if they were a US based company, they could hire someone in the UK, for example.
In the UK, in Peru, in Ghana.
And they don't have to set up anything from a entity structure standpoint. All of that's passed through you.
Yes, that's right. Yes, because at Oyster we have our own direct entities, which allows us to be able to hire people through our own platform that way. And then the contracts are set all throughout the platform. Localized benefits is there, time off. It's like your all-in-one HR management platform, more or less, a global employment platform.
Wow, that's powerful. I mean, if I'd known, some of the companies I worked for, and even had some guests on the podcast who have talked about, there are some challenges that come when you expand into other countries and the rules and regulations and having a physical entity and all that good stuff. But you guys take that off the table and say, no, we got it all taken care of. Just come to us. We can handle all that for you.
Exactly. And I think one of the best things about the Oyster platform as well is we have a treasure trove of knowledge of local regulations, all the information, how much days off does someone need, what's the right medical coverage to provide someone. We provide all that information to you before you make that big leap.
Wow.
Because if you're trying to hire globally, it is, number one, it's very difficult to do on your own.
Yes.
And there are so many legal loopholes that you could kind of put yourself, you could end up in legal hot water if you don't do your due diligence. Luckily, we've taken care of all of that so that you can connect with your global team and can start hiring and growing as quickly as you need to.
Now, that's cool, man. I have not hired people internationally, but actually some of the people that did work for me were hired in other countries. And thankfully my people team at the time had taken care of all that, but I know it was no small feat. So that's really wonderful that you have access to all that, one, information expertise, and two, the ability to handle all the contractual stuff to keep the legal side in the up and up.
Yes.
That's great.
And not only just for, full-time employees, but for any employment modality as well. So part-time, contractors, all sorts.
Wow. Okay. That's fantastic. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us a little bit about Oyster. Now let's rewind the clock and go back, and would love for you to share, how did you get into your first people leadership position?
Wow. So this takes me all the way back to around 2014 when I first became a digital marketing apprentice. I was an apprentice, but I already had 3 years worth of marketing experience. I'm a self-taught marketer and web developer, actually. And
hang on, when you say self-taught, what exactly do you mean by self-taught?
So self-taught means that I actually went and registered a domain name myself, set up WordPress via an FTP client back in the day when things were not so easy as a point and click as they are now.
Yeah.
And from doing that, I also just started playing around with creating content. That was how I got started. Really, I wanted to just put content out in the world, trying to help people to like lead more better, balanced lives. That was the original remit behind how I got started. I didn't know what I was doing was actually content marketing, but that was in fact what I was doing. And then I stumbled across SEO, and then stumbled across paid acquisition, and then all these things came together, which I then was more or less teaching myself, alongside some YouTube videos, to help out here and there. But the actual grunt work, doing it myself, installing Google Analytics myself, and all that fun stuff, and playing around with JavaScript, and just getting into the weeds of everything.
Now, you've covered a lot of ground when you were doing this and teaching yourself all these things, everything from the content and the writing to the SEO and the paid pieces and the FTP with WordPress and the site and all of there's a lot of, it spans everything from, creative down to super technical. How does that line up with your background? Is that just, are you naturally curious and want to like learn how things work?
Yes.
Or how did that work out?
It's like in my background, I've just always had this desire to try new things, learn new things. I think that's partly why I'm in the position I am today, is because I believe firmly that I've been put on this world to make a difference, not to make up the numbers. And so therefore, I want to explore and just see what I'm capable of. I want to find out what my limit is. I don't think I've found it yet. And so I want to just continue pushing and just learning new things, wherever it may take me.
Love it. And I share so much of that same sentiment. And I thank you and I honor you for sharing the reason why you were put on this planet. It is, it doesn't come up too often. And I have something that I share as well as why I was put on this planet, share my gift of coaching, right? And some of the conversations we get to have helps me to do that. And, when we first connected before the recording here, I could sense immediately that just how powerful of a presence you were and how driven you were. And that's why I was like, oh, you got to come on. We got to have this conversation, got to share with other people. All right. So there's a lot of background there in, becoming a better person, learning things, learning new things, pushing yourself and not settling, which is wonderful. So I took a little detour because I wanted to know more about what self-taught really meant. And I think that's a really important theme for people to take away, that, in every industry, whatever job, whatever role you're in, there's an awful lot of self-taught that's capable, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so then you got into this role as an apprentice, and what happened at that point?
Yeah, so at that point, I joined as an apprentice. I wanted to get some like in-house marketing experience and to really discover what it's like to work as part of a marketing team. And so joining a marketing consultancy firm in London, I was responsible at the time for like writing more or less the things that I actually did that I taught myself. I was doing day to day in this role. I was writing content, doing on-page SEO, speaking with clients, preparing workshops for the British Library every month. That was really fun. Building pop-ups. I mean, I think I was probably one of the first users to use opt-in Monster like almost 10 years ago. So it's absolutely fantastic to do, and then kind of writing the code myself because the templates were quite limited back then. So I could do my own customization. So that was more or less how I got involved, and that was my first role, so to speak. Going further from that point as well, I then got promoted to like a content marketing manager, to manage the entire blog, to manage our email nurture campaigns, more or less what you would traditionally find in content marketing today. Preparing in-person workshops. They now do them virtually, which is great. But funnily enough, it's like my very first article that I wrote for them at the time was the article was around like how to find open source images for your blog, and how to use YouTube to grow your business. And I think 3 months after that, well, less than 3 months after those articles were published and the SEO was done and backlinks and whatnot, it became the most popular articles on that for that business. And lo and behold, 8 years later, a couple of weeks ago, I checked. I went into SEMrush just to check to see how they're doing. No doubt the content is still really outdated, but they're still the highest performing content since then. I was like 22 then, and now I'm 30. So just the fact that they're still generating so much traffic. I'm not sure how much revenue and pipeline it generates for them, but at least it's still doing something.
Probably significant. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when you think about going from self-taught, right, and you think about getting into an environment where you want to get some experience in the corporate marketing side, cool. And then you write the first 2 articles that you wrote, knocked it out of the park, and that's phenomenal. So I imagine that there was some, awareness of, wow, DJ knows what he's doing. He's doing really well, getting good results. So then there was a point where your manager went away for a month. And tell us about what went down there.
Yeah, so more or less, he went away to Thailand for a month. He goes away there. He goes away there every year. I didn't know that he was going away that year, but he just said, "Hey, I'm going away for a month. You're in charge of everything." I was like, "Wait, what?" Like,
that literally was how it went. You're in charge. Here you go.
Yeah, there were like contractors that I had to manage that were, we were using Upwork at the time for them. There was an upcoming British Library workshop that had to be done, and I prepared all the workbooks, and more or less that kind of helped me to see exactly how to run a marketing consultancy firm / marketing agency, at such a tender age, and to manage a list of clients. Like, people would still be calling the phone in the office, and I would pick them up, schedule it on his calendar. Sometimes I would take the calls if he was unable to, and it was an incredible journey. Since doing that, he came back, and I think a couple of months later, he then said, right, I think it's now the right time for you to be head of content. So more or less managing more clients, more responsibilities. But at that moment, there was like a tipping point, because I was set to leave London. I'm originally from London, so I was set to leave London and move to the north of England. And obviously, I couldn't no longer work in the office. And he was thinking of replacing me, or rather, I was saying, okay, you're going to have to replace me. I built out like 15 operational manuals for every single process that I'd run in that organization.
Wow.
And then he said, wait, let's not do that instead. Why don't you work remotely? So I was like, yeah, like that's always been my calling. I've always wanted to work remotely for a really long time. So have been, working remotely since back then. It was since September 2015 till now.
Yeah.
It's like I know all the tricks of the trade for remote working. I know it's quite new now to a lot of people, but back then it was seen as weird. My parents were like, "You're working remotely? Like, what does that even mean?" Like, so you're sitting there with your computer, just
don't you get lonely?
They think that I'm playing games or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Working remotely, they're like, "Yeah, sure, you're working, DJ." Okay.
just wasting time. But my parents back then were like, "Oh well, you're somehow paying your bills, so they think that you're doing something right." So I'm like, yeah, of course, it's all good.
That's awesome. Okay, so DJ, as you look back on that, first experience getting into the apprentice, then taking over for the team and really the agency when your boss went away for a month, and then you were also promoted, and then you became the head of content after that. What were the key things that you see looking back on that enabled you to be successful in that environment and in that role?
Yes, I think probably the number one thing that enabled me to be successful in that role was that I brought problems to my manager with solutions. So I didn't just say, "Hey, there's something wrong with the website," or our content strategy isn't working, or "Here's the monthly report for the last month or the last quarter." But I would always come ahead with solutions in terms of how we could improve things and how we could move things to the next level. So being able to be more strategic and start behaving like a CEO myself is what leveled me up in that way, and has enabled me to be able to just take on newer projects, because you're able to look at issues that the business may be facing today or might not be facing but could be facing in the future, and to come up with those solutions that can at least drive more impact for the business has been kind of my number one trick, I guess.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, so tell me more about what you mean by behave like a CEO myself. What does that mean?
Yes. So to behave like a CEO, in my mind, means that if this business is my own, how would I treat it? How would I run it?
Mm.
Um, how would I treat my clients? If I was encountering these problems and my manager wasn't there, what would I do? If I'm unable to find a solution myself, where would I go? Am I resourceful enough to be able to seek outside help and outside mentorship? And there were many cases where that happened, where I had to seek other people out for help, to ask, what do you think about this particular problem? Can we jump on a call for this? And then they would teach me how to solve that problem, or they would at least point me in the right direction so that I can solve it myself. And I've also learned a lot about hiring. So that comes with being a CEO, being able to hire well, and to be able to spot trends in terms of determining what would make someone a great asset to an organization or not.
Huh. That DJ, that is fantastic. Thank you so much. And I think, that sentiment of viewing yourself as a CEO could literally apply, and I love your take on this, could literally apply to anybody in any role, in any position, almost in any company in the world. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is 100% correct. In fact, it's probably more than that. A lot of people think that they can only do leadership type activities if they have the title head
Yes.
of this or VP
Yeah.
of that, or chief whatever. But actually, in my opinion, true leadership comes from those who lead from the front, regardless of what your LinkedIn title says.
Yeah.
It's more about your actions, and the impact that those actions have,
Yeah.
on an organization, rather than being given a flashy title and a and a good pay rise. But
That's
that,
right.
that 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 does come with it in the end.
Yeah.
And you've got to prove yourself.
And if you're doing the work, and if you're leading from the
Exactly.
front, and you're driving the action, and you're getting the impact, the end result of whatever promotion or pay increase or salary or whatever will come its way. It will
Yeah,
come in time,
it's
right?
inevitable, more or
Right.
less.
Or if the organization you're with doesn't happen to support that or view your contribution the same way, guess what?
Yes.
There's a global audience out there, partly empowered by Oyster, that is available to take advantage of your incredible skill set. So,
Exactly. That's the whole point.
yeah, exactly. And I love how you put all of that, being the CEO, looking at this from a CEO's perspective, is all 100% within your control, right? This
Exactly.
isn't
Yeah.
something anybody else is telling you to do. It's like, well, if I was responsible for this business or this portion of the business or whatever this problem was, how would I solve it? What would I do?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Like, I personally think that everybody is, we are all the CEOs of our own career in one way or another.
Yep.
And so it's up to us. Whilst it's true that, yes, you can find mentors and you should find mentors, to help you improve. But we are all, CEOs of our own destiny. And so if you want to get to the next level, find someone who is at that next level and ask them how did they get there.
Yeah.
And then follow in their footsteps, or at least take bits and pieces of knowledge that they've given to you so that you can move forward to the next level. Oftentimes, promotions don't have to come from within the same organization. You can give yourself a promotion by applying for another job that has the role of responsibilities or title that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if your manager or leader does not see your worth or your skill, that, trust me, there is someone else who will, and it will be their loss. So.
Absolutely, 100%. And I love that you echo something that I would say over and over and over again about being the CEO of your career, right? You're the only one who can make the call on what's right for you. You're the only person who can be in charge on the strategic side and say, this is where I should focus, or maybe this is an interest area that I do want to focus on. Now, if I was as CEO of my career, and if I'm saying that's an interest area, let's think about how I could solve that problem. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, and along that thread, you don't, in the beginning when you talked about the self-taught piece, it was all about passion projects on the side. Taught you a lot of these skills that then enabled you to be really successful inside of this agency that you worked for. I'm curious, are you still running passion projects on the side, and how do you think about those in comparison to your normal day job?
So yeah, I've been running passion projects for like the last 10 years. So I've built anything from two-sided marketplaces to job boards, to publications, and small apps as well. So yeah, like, the reason why I think I'm able to do that alongside my day job is because I've automated a lot of it. And I think because I've already taught myself some of the engineering and web development things on the side. There's no, at this current time, there's not much maintenance that's required for those projects. Often, actually, it's from those projects where I'm able to test and experiment ideas, and I can see the exponential increase and exponential benefits that is generated from one of my websites, for example, that I then bring on into my organization that I'm working on today, and I try and replicate the same thing, tweak a few things here and there, and then I see similar results. And that's probably been the same thing, similar to what I've done like for the last 5-6 years. Is I like testing and experimenting things, like even just a simple, blog design, for example. If we're trying to increase the conversion rate of our blog, what most people would probably do is they would just slap a load of pop-ups on the side instead. Yep. But instead, I would do something like I would test, instead of throwing pop-ups up on a certain time when someone had been on the page for a certain period of time, or when they try to exit, the whole exit intent thing. Instead, I do it based on user activity. And so what the user's doing on that page, if someone clicks a link, for example, they expect something to happen. So I tested, as an idea, doing a pop-up when someone would click on a link to learn more or to gain more resources. Rather than sending them over to like a new tab, I would have a pop-up modal, and we're able to increase conversions by like 70% or more. Wow. And then taking that and implementing it in other organizations has seen similar increases. And I just always have a testing mind. What would work differently? Just keep hypothesizing.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great piece of advice there, is to always keep hypothesizing, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing's ever done.
Always testing.
It's just always be questioning, like what could be changed, what could be tweaked. And a lot of times in our roles, like we can get caught up in the day-to-day and all the stuff that we're responsible for and the teams that we serve and all that good stuff. But reality is there's a lot of questions and a lot of things that could probably be optimized if we hypothesized a different outcome, right?
Yeah.
What if?
Exactly. And that's true, it's like the what if is is something that I kind of lead my life by, which is why I said earlier around I've been put on this earth to reach my potential. I don't think I'm even 10% there yet when I think about it. And I always try to think, what if there was a way to do this better? What would I do? Yeah. With resources, without resources, and kind of use that and leverage that to make a difference, not only on the performance of my marketing work specifically, but also within the organization and trying to make tangible change, and like building safety amongst team members and whatnot. So.
Wow. Yeah. And that what if, two simple words put together, it's all 100% within your control too. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Taking a step back and saying what if and looking at things from a different perspective, you could do it at any point in time. It's a really, really great.
Yeah, it's so true, because when I think sometimes a lot of people, especially I think in this industry, they try to copy and paste playbooks that they may have seen and used. I think you can't really copy and paste playbooks from one business to another constantly. Like, for example, the way that traditional lead generation is done today is let's just spend a ton of money on ads and drive them to demo request forms, and then get like 0.10% conversion rate, or to lead qualified, to a book demo. It's just not, it's not as useful as it used to be. But if we started test as an industry, as a people, if we just started testing our ideas more, and start speaking to our customers more often, then we'll actually be able to identify which channels, which messages would resonate better with them. And that's always part of the testing framework. I would rather try out 1,000 things, get them all wrong, but then the next 5 are, gonna provide huge results, rather than to never test anything, continue doing the same thing, and continue getting those marginal increases or improvements. Yeah.
So what's the parallel between that and people leadership that you see? Like, is it the same one for one? We should always be testing and iterating on how we engage with our teams and people, or
I think when it comes to managing people, I think you also always have to be testing different ways of communication. different ways in terms of delivering feedback, refining our leadership style and how we manage our teams and making sure that they feel psychologically safe. What can we do? So, for example, I was asking myself, what can I do to make my team more psychologically safe in the workplace? And then I would come up with a hypothesis. Oh, what if I was to be more transparent with team members when certain things were happening in the organization? One of the biggest issues that I find in most orgs today is that the information that is given to, let's say, executives and leaders, or let me just say, information that is presented to those who it affects the least, is that information is told to those that it affects the least, they're told first. So, whereas the information that it affects the most, the team members, they're told last, which doesn't make sense. So I've kind of reversed that. And anytime like senior leadership gives me information that affects my team, I tell them straight away in the best way possible. I don't wait weeks. I don't sit on it and try to solve it myself. I actually tell them, and I be as frank as possible, but as honest as possible. And that's why a large number of my team have always said that they really value the fact about how transparent I am. And it really helps them feel safe in the organization, which is great.
And that all stemmed from a hypothesis you had about how could I increase, or if I was more transparent, that would increase the level of psychological safety.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's all leadership. And then in those words is one experiment after another to continuously tweak and refine and change and improve.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful way to look at it. Wow. That's powerful. Curious on the psychological safety piece. It has come up in a number of other podcasts, and I know it's a hot topic across the board on teams as well. So in addition to transparency and your hypothesis around that, are there other hypotheses you've had and experimented with that have had great results, like that 70% boost? Like you found some outliers in a few of your other marketing cases. Have you found anything that's an outlier in the psychological safety environment?
Yeah, like there's been times where I've found that if you have one-on-ones, at least my hypothesis was, if I were to have one-on-ones, how could I deliver a better, how could I be a better manager to my team if I knew more information about them or what their week was like before that one-on-one. And that led me to discover a tool called Kona, which is it's an employee retention app. It really helps to encourage your team to be more transparent with you, and it does it by asking them in Slack every day, how are they feeling? They select a green, yellow, or red heart, and then if they selected yellow heart, then they can elaborate on how they're feeling, and they can say, "Oh, I'm feeling stressed today," or "Oh, I've had a really terrible headache." And when managers sometimes look at an individual's performance, we don't realize that people have lives too, and there's so much that happens outside of work that can affect performance. And so I remember our leadership team was trying out Kona, and I was like, "Oh, why are they keeping such a good thing to themselves?" So I just went and I asked them, "Can I have it?" And they said, "Yeah, go for it." And so I tested it with my team at the time. I think we were 8. And we could see the trends. People were averaging yellow, and then when they were using it more often, they're now averaging green more, and our one-on-ones are much more productive. It now means that I can tailor exactly how I can spend my time with my team. Sometimes in my one-on-ones, I don't talk about work at all. I talk about day-to-day life and what things they enjoy and what they do. Other times it would be, providing them with deep feedback, or they come to me and they say, "Hey, I feel like the role that I'm doing isn't exactly what I signed up for." Now, I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for, being intertwined with how they're feeling throughout those recent weeks and seeing the trends as it tells me, that they're feeling a certain way. So that's been a massive win so far.
That's powerful. That's and what a great way to focus the time you have, the precious little time you have in a one-on-one. Not trying to understand what the previous week or 2 weeks has been like, but actually taking all that because you assume that you know it already from the Kona in this application that helps you do that, and then focusing it on where you can have the greatest impact in whatever the topic and approach might be for that situation. That's really cool. And again, that started as a hypothesis of, and how can I make my one-on-ones efficient was the problem, right? Or the question. And then he said, well, if I knew more about the context of my employees' lives throughout the week, then the hypothesis is that I could have more effective one-on-ones.
More or less, yeah.
That's so cool.
So it's like it all comes full circle.
It totally does. That's wonderful. I just love how you look at these, challenges and questions and problems as, there's a problem. Let me form a hypothesis. Let me test it, and I'll figure out the right way forward. Whichever.
Exactly. Yeah, and you know what? If it doesn't work, sometimes that's totally okay. I'll try something else. So just continue having those ideas. It's kind of how I try to improve my leadership skills, for sure. Yeah.
I love it. Wonderful. All right, DJ, last question here. Let's say that you were able to go back in time and sit down with your younger self way back in when you were going to take over the agency running when your boss split for a month, but you know everything that you know today. What advice would you give your younger self?
I would definitely say that's a really good one. I would probably say to him, continue doing what you're doing, but try to identify problems that you think will move the needle in every situation possible. And sometimes also doing that outside of your day-to-day role in different departments. It could be just because you sit in marketing or sales doesn't mean that the problems you solve are only going to affect your department. There are, marketing is one of those departments, especially product marketing, that touches a lot of organizations. And so I would definitely say get more involved in the work of what other people do, and try to understand where you can discover new problems that they're facing and trying to come up with solutions with them. Like one of the things that I do today at Oyster is every week when it's like Fridays, on Fridays, which is Focus Fridays here at Oyster, no meetings, I go into Slack, I click on the search bar and I type in loom.com because the reason for that is everyone embeds Looms every week for doing team updates and talking about their struggles and their challenges and new projects kicking off. And you wouldn't believe the kind of strategic projects and opportunities that you could uncover from other teams. And the bigger the organization, the more projects there are. And I do that every week. And then I just watch all the Loom videos and then I identify ones that I feel like I could have a tangible input and positive effect on. And then I found that I just contact the person on Slack who created that Loom and I say, hey, can I help out with this? And then no one will ever say no. So
No, it's my problem.
And so I go ahead, I do that, and then I spend some time over the next fortnight or so to try and help them come up with a solution. And it enables me to see outside my own worldview. And that is what will enable you to be a better marketer, but then also to just be a better leader in general, to look outside your own peripherals and see the forest. Whatnot.
That's absolutely incredible advice. Wonderful. So well said. And what a powerful thing to just search in Slack, at the end of every week and find who else is talking about problems that maybe you have an opportunity to help them solve, and then offering to partner with them, help them solve it and whatnot. And like you said, nobody will ever say no to you to solve that problem. That's awesome. Very cool. Indeed. All right, DJ. Well, it has been an absolute blast to spend some time with you today. Thank you for sharing your incredible path, experience, expertise, wisdom, the power of a hypothesis. And now we know what that looks like in a leadership perspective, whether that's leadership with people, with your team, whether that's leadership with yourself, whether that's leadership with you and your community, whatever it is, there's a hypothesis that can be put in place to solve a problem or at least find a potential solution to a problem. So thank you so much for sharing with us, DJ, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Speak again soon. Bye-bye.